Warning. The following contains spoilers. Please be advised.
Also, Microsoft, if you're listening, bring back Quick Basic. That shit was dope.
Hello, and welcome back to the Buffalo Game Space Game Club Episode 4. We are recording on March 9th, 2017. I am your host, Pat Kesterson.
I'm Greg Giles.
I'm Chris Langford.
And today we are talking about heavy bullets. I've already hit the mic. So this game came out September 8, 2014 on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Woo! Made by one dude named Terry Velman, so you can blame him for everything.
I didn't know it was a one-man team.
It was a one-man team, but it was published by Devolver Digital.
Which is surprising.
Yeah, yes and no, especially in that era of Devolver Digital, which was the Hotline Miami era.
Yeah.
I could kind of see it a little bit.
I mean, Devolver still puts out weird stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I still want to play. I have it, but I want to play the new horror game they just put out.
I'll say why that was surprising later.
Okay.
What I mean by that, I guess.
It currently has a 9 out of 10 on Steam and Metacritic 72%, which is actually kind of weird how that's...
Yeah, how disparate that is.
Yeah.
That's Metacritic.
It is Metacritic, so take it with an asterisk next to it.
A very large grain of salt.
But it still is interesting to see the average of everything. There is literally nothing else to talk about with this. I actually looked to see if there was any little stories that I could. There's nothing.
Controversy.
I got nothing on this one.
I mean,
this game just came out.
For anyone who doesn't know or hasn't played it or seen it, it's a roguelike that's also a first-person shooter. So all the levels are procedurally generated. It's you have to basically power your way through 8 levels to reach I think it's the top of a tower or something. I really can't say because I didn't get to it.
Well, you go down.
Oh, you go down, you're right.
You go
Level
down.
1 and 2,
It's the opposite of a tower.
As far as I got.
Yeah, it's... Ooh. It's broken up into 8 parts, so like 8 levels, and each one's randomly generated.
Yep.
The main concept of the game is you have to pick up your bullets after you shoot them. Yep. Which is a cool concept. It does lead to some interesting
It makes you
scenarios.
very, very cautious about what you fire at. You can't just spray and pray in a room because you run out of... You start with 6 bullets, and that's it. You can get more or buy more as you progress through the game. You can't just run in and shoot all over the place because you will die. You
will die very fast.
And when you reload, you have to press R for every bullet.
Yes.
I actually think that's kind of cool.
I don't.
You can change that because there's upgrades you can get. So this game actually has a leveling system with different skills in it as well.
Yeah.
And one of the skills you have is like a reload time essentially.
There's so many for such a simple the big point of this game was you have to pick up your bullets. That is it. It begins and ends there. It's randomly generated, but at the end of the day, it's
6 bullets, and when you fire them, you got to pick them.
You got to pick them up.
And boy, are they heavy.
They are so heavy. But the thing is, other than that, the game, the mechanics around that singular thing, there's a shit ton of them.
Yeah.
There's so many pickups. There's multiple enemies. They scale for how far away or how far into the game you are. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I don't want to say surprising, but it's just kind of odd to me about how we have a concept that's so simple, but
I mean, I feel like it cribs a lot of stuff from other roguelikes in that, again, you've got procedurally generated levels. It gets harder the further you progress. It's basically a dungeon crawler. The only thing it really doesn't have, as far as I'm aware, is procedurally generated items. There's a set number, there's a lot of them, but there's a set number of items you can pick up and upgrades. And one of the ways they make this more challenging is by limiting the amount of items you can carry at a given time. You can have, I don't know if there's a max on the number of bullets you can carry.
I don't think so, because in my very last run through that I was doing before this, I had 12 in my inventory, outside of the 6 in the
chamber. There's also grenades, standard hand grenades, and then you can carry one item.
Unless you get the backpack.
Right, you can get a backpack and carry 2. So you have like a super limited inventory system for different items that are things like one-time use armor or special bombs, teleporters. There's keys for like locked areas, and you can pick up coins when you kill guys, so you can spend that in these different vending machines, which I thought was kind of a neat spin on it. Instead of just like stumbling across stuff on the ground, you could actually like buy power-ups or bullets
you had
or other
some
items.
like while there were some gimmies, they also did give you a couple.
Also, I don't know how. Like I said, there's keys that you can pick up, like key cards, and I don't know how the distribution of them is actually determined.
They're fucking small.
Well, they're hard to find, but when you do, you can get into certain rooms that'll have like the items you would normally pay for. There's like one in there, and you break a case and you get it, and it's a cool way to kind of like see like, oh, I didn't know you could do that in this game.
Yeah. Especially at like level 1, like if you see a room behind the key with a key card, you're like, something good's in there. Which especially because you're on level 1, like that could completely craft that playthrough. Like if you get a good set of items on like 1 and 2, and that like other than that could determine what's going to happen. If you don't have a good run, just restart.
Yeah,
just restart.
So
honestly.
yeah, it's one of the things that they did in here I like, because there's basically permadeath. They have a feature in here called life insurance, and you spend like a certain amount of money on it, and you can rebuy the item. And every time you buy it, it gets more expensive, but it increases basically the percentage of cash you carry over to your next playthrough, which is like super handy if you want to like just jump in, buy it once, collect as much gold as you can until you die, and then just keep collecting more and more money.
There's also like these banks, right? So
yeah.
How do those work? Because
So
I put money in the bank.
The bank actually is the same thing, except when you have life insurance, it only saves a percentage of what you're carrying. If you go out of your way to put money in the bank, it stays there until
Between plays.
Yes, between plays.
That's actually like if you were going to play this game, I think my first 20 playthroughs, I just dumped all the money I picked up.
Yeah. Like if I was playing through, especially like first level, I never bought anything. I always just like first time I saw a bank, I just threw all my money in it.
So the banks and there's like these vending machines scattered throughout, and sometimes they're a bank. They look like basically like a cola vending machine, you could say. And then sometimes they're a bank, sometimes they're items, sometimes what?
Med bay.
There's like a health
bay.
one. There's an item one. There's an ammunition one.
And then what is available in some of those can also be random.
That is it's
not
up
the
to
bank.
chance. The bank is always the same. You can like deposit. You can deposit money. You can also store an item.
Yes. Between playthroughs.
Yeah. Basically like a safety deposit box.
Yeah.
And you can withdraw money, obviously. But yeah, like the med bays and the weapon, like the ammunition machines and the item machines, it's all randomized what they're actually carrying.
Yeah, I think there's like 6 possibilities and only 4 options available. So like one of them could have the max life up, like so you can get an extra heart, but it won't always have that.
Yeah.
Like so, if you find one that does, you try to use it there. That was confusing to me at first because, like, you'd go through an area, like, so each area is kind of gated off, and then once you go through the next gate, that the one that you originally entered closes off, so you can't go back into it.
Right.
But in those areas, sometimes there'd be 2 of the same machine, and they would have the exact same thing, even if, because, like, they still roll the same, so it's, procedural generated. So, but like, man, you kind of wish that they would make it so that it wouldn't at least be the same thing in each one.
So going back to the procedural generation thing, like I'm a big fan of like old school roguelikes. Like I play NetHack a lot, and one of the things that game does great is the items themselves aren't just randomized in the terms of placement, like what they actually do. Like there's potions you can pick up and spells and stuff, and there's a set. Basically, I think there's like a set number of parameters that a spell can affect. And it randomizes what those parameters are. And then, it just comes up with a name from a library for it. So every time you play through, it's not like you're limited to like 6 different items. It's, I don't know what the full count would be, but I'm assuming it's several hundreds of thousands of different variations. You know, and I think that this game could have benefited from something like that.
So I have a lot of issues with how randomness is done in this game. I guess maybe randomness is not the specific issue, but it's proximal to the issue, which is I don't think these levels are random enough to be interesting at all. I think you basically feel like you're constantly entering and leaving the same room.
I think that's more on the aesthetic and less on the generation mode, because I honestly feel that the generation of levels is actually very random. It's just they all...
Architecturally,
it's very random, but it doesn't feel any different.
But because the wall texture is the exact same.
So, I mean, it's got this real heavy, like, old school arcadey kind of almost vaporwave vibe to it.
Screenshot's awesome.
Yeah, but like if you play it, like I found because I was really interested in this game and I love the way it looked when I saw
figured
videos
you would. Like, it'd be perfect for you.
And it almost got tiring to me after a while.
Almost
just like
immediately,
looking at
it's
it,
just like
it's
one
so,
kind of wall.
And
I mean,
the way this we talked about this earlier. The gameplay feel like mechanically is a lot like Doom, but it's not nearly as fun as Doom. No. I'm talking like the original.
And Doom gives you more space.
Well, it's not just that. Doom gives you more space and more enemies to play with, but the most important thing that keeps Doom interesting, I think, is the variation in level height.
It has personality.
And texture. So every room in Doom, there's different floor textures, there's different wall textures, there's different ceiling textures, and the height, every time you go into a different area, the height changes.
Yeah, this game actually would have benefited a lot from having different heights.
Yeah, this game plays on the same plane, like it just plays flat the entire time, and the wall textures are identical throughout the entirety, as far as I got in the game at least.
I've got as far as I think as any of us, and it does not change at all. It's the same, like...
I do feel I should throw out there that this was made by a very small development team, and they did a lot with it.
Well, that's...
But
I mean,
and I think that's kind of why it is what it is.
That's why it is. Exactly. I mean, for one, like that... if you eliminate... So procedural generation, obviously, that's one way you get a huge amount of content without authoring a lot of content. Also, if you eliminate heights, you make it narrow and fairly predictable, you can generate a lot of content that gives you a lot of, I guess, control over the flow. So it's always narrow, and the patterns are pretty similar, and that allows them to consistently deliver a specific experience that they're designing for. But the problem is that core loop is not interesting. It's just not. Like, it's consistent. They did that. They nailed it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's super important. Like, if you have a lot of diversity, that's cool. But if it is not consistent in its delivery in terms of just what's possible and what's fair to the player and things like that, that's really it's equally frustrating. But it's like, I feel like they came up with a really strong system. They went with low poly art, procedural generation, and a very specific kind of procedural generation that gave them the ability to generate a lot of content with a consistent end result. But that result, the moment-to-moment playthrough is just not fun. So everything that's built around this is sort of like whatever, because I'm not interested in the core loop. Like, I'm not interested in... I don't like the movement. I don't think the spaces are varied enough. And, like, the visuals I do like, but, I mean, the first room you enter is what the entire game looks like. So...
I have one major beef with the moment-to-moment, and I feel like because of it, like, the whole game gets dragged down. There's no fucking music.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't either. I actually usually turn music off.
I don't. But in a game like this, like, that would have just even just a little bit.
So I actually somewhat disagree with that. And I guess one of the stronger points of it, I thought, was actually the sound design in a way. I liked the feeling of... I liked... To me, the way the ambient sound was handled gave it a very believable sort of terrarium feel. I felt very much like I was in an indoor-outdoor place.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Which is exactly what it's going
Which
for
is what
from a
it is,
visual
and it
point
was
of view.
awesome. I loved the way the sound was. Like in that way, they made a very unique. They had a unique thing they were going for, and I felt like it was very well communicated. But that's me. That's just.
I'm fairly certain too. All the sound effects and music, the audio production was all by Dose One.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, who's that?
He's a hip hop artist. He's done some other game work too. Yeah.
Visual artist. I didn't know he did.
I can.
sound.
Yeah. No, I don't think
Isn't he a visual artist?
He's a rapper.
A rapper?
Yeah.
But
He's an underground hip hop guy. I'm trying to think of other games he's worked on. Because he's done a lot of stuff with, like, he's worked with, like, the Vlambeer guys.
Yeah, it's Dose One.
And
Yeah. First, if you Google Dose One, and the first thing that comes up is lyrics. So. Does he not do visual stuff too?
The thing with the audio is, especially later on in the game, I noticed that the audio, they do get the kind of echoey sound of being inside something. I would literally be looking at like a coin jumping on the ground. The sound would be muted and sound like I'm 3 rooms away from it. Like the way audio reacts in the world, I'm going to assume it's because it's random and like they just couldn't equate for
I don't
everything.
know about that. I think it's using the base Unity.
I'm
Like
trying to
audio.
give them credit or something, but like the fact is like the audio was off. It was straight up off. And in a game that is very heavily based around listening to what's going around you,
Right.
hearing something sneak up on you, and all of a sudden, like just in the last playthroughs before this, I was literally nothing wrong, and then all of a sudden turn around, enemy dead. And it's like
Huh.
I didn't run into that. I
didn't
played a fair
either.
amount of this.
I
That's
think I
interesting.
didn't get it too much, but when they start throwing everything at you,
Yeah.
like at the later
You got a
levels,
lot farther than we did.
yeah, like once like to the point where like every room has like 6 or 7 enemies.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. 6 or 7 enemies. It got to the point where like it was off, and it was noticeably off.
It definitely like suffered from a lack of processing in a way that like if an enemy was in the next room and made a sound, you really couldn't differentiate. Like you could you could tell the direction it came from, but like the sound, it didn't seem to take into account whether or not a wall was there, like at all.
That's exactly
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's like again, like I would literally be looking at something, and the audio is just completely wrong.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, why the fact that having the music, especially later on, because at some point it's just like, it's not. I'm not saying like you have to have a bombastic like John Williams soundtrack, but just a little undertone,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I think-
especially to fill in the blank areas.
I feel like at the very least, yeah, it would have kind of broken up the monotony. And it's funny you mentioned blank areas because there are a lot of segments I noticed in this game where you are just kind of exploring.
especially in the
Which
early
is-
game.
Yeah, which is great, except the levels all look the same, which makes it more of a slog.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which I mean, is unfortunate.
But and especially because like I actually the main menu track like that plays for your victory. So it was literally as far as I can see, one piece in this whole game. And but like supposedly they had like a pretty good like you couldn't have made just like 1 or 2 more, like make one just for like a low like through the to go through the game. Just like even if it doesn't like scale up and down for action, just a little bit. Something like even white noise to cover up just the empty blankness because there was nothing, it made those empty parts so much more empty.
Yeah, I think having no music and the minimal audio this game does and done correctly. I'm not even saying they did it incorrectly. I don't really know. It's like one of those things I'd have to like put in, play it a bit, and be like, okay, maybe this is better with sound. Maybe I don't know. I think I agree with you though that I think it probably would benefit from just
A little bit.
But then at the same time, think about if somebody's really engaging this game the way it was designed, you'd be hearing that song so much because it's really about just like trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. I think you would. Unless
would
you
have
had
had
an enormous amount of
Yeah.
audio, you might either enormous or none. I don't know.
I
Those
think
are
that's
basically
just the
your
nature of the
options.
beast, unfortunately, though. But
I guess I could see, and if it already is so visually repetitive that if you only had a couple audio tracks in and you added in the audio repetition of just the same song
Yeah.
over and over. I could see that hurting it.
But I mean, I guess at that point they'd have to go the Hotline Miami track of like having a shitload of music,
A really good soundtrack.
a really good soundtrack. Like each level has its own piece.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I kind of like what they were going for, but I just don't. I feel like it's a too streamlined. In some ways, it really does. It's a very minimal game in ways that are kind of impressive, but the bottom line is I just didn't have fun playing it.
I could 100% agree with those words.
Yeah.
It felt like work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because there's. We keep bringing up like Hotline Miami, or like now I've talked about other roguelikes, and there's another game that's not procedurally generated, but what you would think is very monotonous, called Devil Daggers, that I'm a huge fan of. And I think what all of these games have that this doesn't, even though it's kind of in a similar vein, is that they have very emergent gameplay. There's a lot of things where they throw different elements at you, and the way they interact with one another creates for varied gameplay, and this game doesn't have that.
Yeah.
I think
true. It feels like they just throw shit at you.
I feel like the best way for me personally to describe, especially like, and I was thinking about this just in like my final playthroughs, there is zero personality.
Yeah.
It's just like I hate to keep bringing up Hotline, but even like Devil Daggers, like it's satanic and like and it's like a jokey satanic, and like Hotline Miami's got like the ultra violent like 80s vibe. And I noticed like I finally kind of picked up on it, what they were trying to do with like the text at the beginning of like that kind of tongue in cheek, and then like if you picked up an antidote, like your character kind of goes, and I'm like, oh, that's adorable. Like they're like, you can see them trying to kind of do that humor thing, but there's zero of it. Like there's not enough that when what they put in there just kind of becomes like, that's just sad at that point. It's like
I think there's a lack of personality in that way, but also to kind of combine what you just said with what Chris's point before that. I think there's a lack of personality in each enemy. When you see any enemy, it beelines for you.
They just come
hard.
straight at you.
Yeah.
They
don't do anything.
They don't assemble together into a more interesting form gameplay wise. So I guess what I mean is like the most basic enemy is that imp, and it just fucking darts at you. And then there's a spider, and it just fucking darts at you.
Yeah.
And then there's like a stationary laser cannon, and it just focuses you. Everything just focuses you hard and fast.
And when
what
it's
would be more interesting if the imp was slower, and then you could combine it with the laser turret that stationary turret that can rotate, and then you have an imp that's slow and chases you, and you can make an interesting combination there. Right now, in the way this game is structured, things do not assemble in any way that makes a bigger, greater whole. That's the
way to beat this game is to run into a room, get the enemies to come at you, run around the corner, fire, and then take out the turrets afterwards.
So that's the other thing. Is like they don't do anything when they're idle. They just sit there.
Yeah.
So Hotline Miami does a great thing where there's a couple different enemy types, and they do just beeline at you if they see you. But there's also guys that just kind of idle. There's guys that patrol. There's guys that just walk in random directions. And they all play against each other and change their state depending on how you've interacted with them. And it makes for a much more interesting level. Doom's another really great example where the enemies, when you walk into a room, they just idle. They're not doing anything.
They just
but as soon as you
walk in place.
Yeah,
right?
because actually none of them have any idle animations. Yeah. But when they
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When they start moving, they will attack you. And they do different things. They come at you in different ways. However, they also will attack each other. The game has infighting.
Yeah.
So they suddenly will put priority on different enemies other than you, depending on the situation, which makes for really interesting environments.
Yeah.
Where, if you've got like a row of guys coming at you, and one guy shoots at you and he clips one of the enemies that's in front of him, that enemy will turn and start attacking him if he thinks it's more of a threat. And it just kind of it makes for this gameplay where everything's sort of, again, this like living, breathing environment that can interact with one another. And to Greg's point, in this, it's very much just all they care about is you. And they all do the same thing.
It's funny that you bring that up because they can destroy each other. I've had a couple times where the turrets would kill like the imps or spiders.
But it's
charging
accidental.
Me. But it was accidental,
Right.
and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
Nothing would
And
change.
again, it's hard. It's hard to work with that because the things are so fast and so direct at you. It's not like you can kite them into
and use
danger,
it
right?
for you.
Like
Yeah.
you really can't.
Yeah.
And I sort of realized something in us kind of talking about the lack of depth in sort of how these things have come at you, the lack of verticality to it, and the narrowness of it. It's almost like it would have been better as a 2D game.
It's like a top-down.
Because you're
like a rogue.
Not even maybe a top-down, but even a side scroller. The point is that it doesn't use 3 dimensions. That's I guess where it falls a little short.
Yeah.
Is it's a 3-dimensional game that never really goes more than 2 dimensions.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
At any moment.
Which is funny. Again, I keep tooting Doom's horn here, but Doom is a 2D game
Dude,
that feels
Doom-
like it's playing in 3 dimensions. So
Doom.
Exactly. Doom is your Dark Souls, by the way.
it is. I know.
What's my Dark Souls on?
Probably
The
fucking
Division?
The Division.
I guess Division right now. Yeah.
Or maybe Overwatch.
No, honestly, I don't.
Dude,
No.
you're never on Overwatch.
Because my computer's here.
You should get another one.
You should
Yeah,
live
like-
here.
Me and
I
Doug.
pretty much
One
already
of us.
Yeah, you do. We all do, actually.
Yeah, that got dark real fast.
Oh God! See, we're watching gameplay footage of this on the TV in here right now, and the player that's running this just did exactly what we described. Walk up to a room, trigger the enemies,
Aggro.
jump back around the
Right.
corner, wait for them to run around so you can shoot
I
them.
think that goes to another thing is there is grand total one strategy for this game.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
There's
yeah.
one mode of play. It's run in, get their attention, back up, and
Yeah.
shoot them.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like
But, sorry, go ahead.
no, like it sounded like you had something nice to say.
Well, that's kind of what I mean. I don't want to just relentlessly like poop on it because, if look,
I'm laughing at the words relentlessly poop. I'm just imagining that in my head now. Sorry, carry on.
no, I should think about things before.
No,
I
that
say
was-
them because I
Put that,
that
on the box
visual
cover.
is
Put that on
way
the
more
box
aggressive
cover.
than the way I was trying to frame it. Anyways.
Relentlessly poop, Greg Giles.
I am DJ Poop Pants. But
Oh, that made me happy.
I think this game was just so close to being incredibly efficient and powerful, and it just quite didn't happen. Like,
Yeah.
it is almost an incredibly clean minimalist game, but it lacks depth.
Yeah. And it doesn't need a lot to make
It
it,
doesn't.
better,
That's
which
the
is
thing.
it's the
so
frustrating
close.
part.
But but the fact that it falls short and how unfun it is because it falls short makes it really hard for me to like. I don't enjoy it like at all. But at the same time, it drives me crazy because I feel like it was really close to being a very enjoyable game.
Yeah.
But
I'm kind of bringing the Division up to it. The Division has a thing called survival mode, where you start it completely fresh and you have to find weapons and clothing equipment along the way.
yeah,
And when you die, you can restart the mode and everything. But when I die in that, I go, oh, that was a good run. Like, I'll try that again.
Yeah.
And this one I die, I'm like,
yeah, right,
I
Exactly.
gotta go through all that again.
exactly.
And it's work and not fun.
Yeah.
Because there's no happiness or joy here. It's just computers running at you,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Speaking of sort of starting from zero, I do think that the game, despite us not being able to want to replay it, it does do a good job of something that's really hard to do in design is have, especially in a game that gets to the point so quickly about like this, which is another strength of it, is that you're almost immediately in what the game is.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the introduction is really slow. At the same time, the first time I ever played this game, I never felt like the pacing of the introduction of enemies was actually very strong. Like you're kind of running around like, what's going on here? And then you see a guy and you see one guy and you kill him and you're like, oh shit, okay, crazy. And then like you're not paying attention and then you get bit by a snake thing on the ground and you're like, whoa, okay, so now I know about that thing. And it felt very much like a proper tutorial, but it's also exactly how it plays every time you start the game.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting because it's consistent with the core loop that they build, but it's also like inherent. I don't know if inherently, but like it's also very well done in a way that like the first time you're playing, even though it's your first playthrough, you are introduced into that loop properly.
It does a very good job of showing its mechanics and explaining how the game plays to you right from the start.
And that is not separate though from the core loop, which is so fucking hard to do. That's
it
really
is
hard.
the game feels like a solid piece.
Yeah.
There is no like split off section. That's the learning, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's like honestly I feel like it could have helped that if just like at level 4, because there's 8 levels, you could start there if you wanted to. Like, and I'm not saying start at every level 4. Because to go 8 levels is a long time.
Yeah. See,
to slug through that.
Yeah, what I just pointed out does kind of fall apart on the backside of that game because it's so slow at first that like it does kind of make it a chore.
Yeah, you're just trying to get back to where you were.
When you've been like hanging out at level 7. Starting at level 1 is just it's a little too dead.
It's being forced to play through the tutorial all over again.
It's like I always liked how Gears of War Horde mode is. Like you can once you beat that level, you can select what the hell level you want to start with. You'll start with the beginning gear, so good luck, but you can. And it's just like it's a challenge upon you, but you don't have to go through the boringness of I gotta go fight 4 enemies again.
See, though, the difference between those two options of what you described for a game that's like $10 or something like that, like if you allow people to skip to any level or 4, you've just turned what could be a multi-hour game into like an hour.
This is true. I guess you would have to like give your like a score at the end or something to like actually achieve through by doing the whole thing in one go.
If you're worried about
or level it out,
actual bang for your buck on a game like this, you make the core loop fun.
Yeah.
Like that's like you make it something people want to replay. I mean that's something like
classic zing from Chris Langford.
Well, I'm just saying like Devil Daggers for me personally, not everybody agrees with this, but I think is like a prime example of that where like every time you play the game when you start it, it's the exact same start every single time. You're presented with one enemy that spawns a bunch more enemies.
Right.
And that right there teaches you everything you need to know about the game. And you get through it so quickly and it starts throwing more stuff at you. It's fun and it's exciting because it doesn't just...
Devil Daggers is definitely a better example of what I was getting at with saying like, the intro is as integrated into the loop as just...
I would say it's because the intro, the beginning and like where the game actually starts is a lot shorter and more efficient. Whereas in this one, it's literally a whole level.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how integrated it is. The fact is, you still have to physically walk through it, even if there's only 6 enemies. The level's still the same size.
Yeah.
So
now, I mean, a game where you have to not necessarily walk through the whole level, but is similar to Heavy Bullets and does a good job of this is Nuclear Throne. Nuclear Throne is a top-down 2D roguelike shooter, so it's like very similar mechanics to Heavy Bullets, but it's just not a first-person shooter. But the opening level, it's the same thing. It drops you in. You have to fight a few basic guys, and instead of getting to the end of that level, you don't have to navigate the whole thing. You just kill everything in it, and it opens a portal to the next level. But that game loop is very fun because it's got more varied enemies. The weapons are a little more different and exciting. There's more options and ways to play.
Do you get different weapons in this?
In Heavy Bullets?
Yeah.
No, that's the other thing is you have the pistol, and that's it. And the other items are available to you. They're just not that... I felt they weren't that good. Like, the hand grenades didn't feel fun to use at all, because I usually just killed myself with them.
Yeah, those things, like, their blast radius versus, like, your movement, and the fact that there's just shit in the way.
Yeah.
Like, there's no efficient way to using them other than run up, drop, and, like, keep running and hope for the best. Or you have the teleporter.
Yeah. So, I don't know. As much as I wanted to like this game, I could not recommend it.
I had a lot... I was hoping... I guess I wasn't disappointed because, like, it was less than $10 and, like, it is what it is. But I feel like a lot of people were definitely hyping this up, and I was just kind of like, eh.
I think the best thing I can say about it is it's very well polished. I think for what it is, it's
Yes.
extremely well made.
What it is 100%.
It's
I
just
think that's what it comes down to with this game is like, I think the biggest. It's just very clear to me that the biggest constraint in this game was developer time, and it was like everything was designed around basically not having a lot of time or to give to development, and
It feels like a game jam game.
yeah, it's kind of you're kind of right. It's kind of like a jam game with a really nice coat of paint.
Yeah, it felt
You know?
like a game jam game.
you know, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
If it started as one and he
Yeah.
just, but the thing is, it doesn't feel like he added anything after that.
Yeah,
Like
Well,
he just,
must have taken time to add a ton. I mean,
but like I mean,
tons.
besides
of the
from like
items.
items and stuff, but
Right.
like the mechanics wise, like the core gameplay,
Yeah,
it's
there's not
it's
enough
that.
nuance to any of it.
Yeah. It's very like, I think everything we described about what we didn't like or how we would have improved it is all like just going past that surface level. And I feel no element of this game does. Like it does that surface
Right,
level very, very
exactly,
well,
exactly.
but it doesn't explore anything past
Exactly.
that.
It
no-
And
never
it-
feels like
and
it
it-
opens up in any way.
And if it had done
Yeah.
it like just one of any of those things, I feel like it would have made the game infinitely better. So I would recommend this game solely to people who are looking or are interested in game design and like ways that you can go wrong without realizing it.
Like
Yeah,
if
this
you want to
is
see the
actually-
ones and zeros,
To tell you the truth, one good piece of like advice to learning game design is to play bad games.
Yeah.
But some games are just like so bad.
Well,
and
there's
you can benefit from playing. This one is actually the almost the perfect kind of bad for studying for game design because it is so close that you really have to think about like what the fuck am I
You have to
missing?
break
Like,
it down.
What's missing here?
Yeah.
What is this game? What is it missing?
it falls less on design and more on just game theory.
yeah.
Like what actually makes fun and
Yeah.
interesting.
Well,
well, it's I mean those are all design elements.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's when
There's
you're
a big overlap.
yeah.
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 those words just
So one
Yeah.
last one. I think we're hitting the end here.
Yeah, we're
one last
pretty-
thing I wanted to throw out there. One game I think that does almost everything we just talked about that would be a great improvement to this. That's also a first-person roguelike is a game called Delver. That's available on Steam right now, and that is like I said, it's a fantasy-themed first-person roguelike. But it's got the level variance. It's got the more dynamic enemies. It's got, changes in texture, changes in height, changes in different kinds of items. There's more items and there's more ways to play the game. It provides you with ways where you can, there's melee and ranged combat. You can be a spellcaster or you can just be a barbarian. You can do different things. And there's a sense of mystery and you do have to progress through and find the end of every level to proceed to, to delve down into the next dungeon. And every time you do, when you get into a new area, it's different and it's exciting. And it provides the player with this sense of mystery and intrigue that makes you want to play more.
like it's a journey.
Exactly.
It feels like there's distance being done.
It feels like an adventure. And I think I was really looking for that in this, and I didn't find it, and that made me sad.
You know what? I just realized while you were saying that the lighting literally doesn't change.
No.
ever. Until after 4, apparently you get a flashlight. But the thing is, it really didn't change anything. It was the lighting was slightly darker,
Yeah.
and you had a flashlight.
Huh.
Like it didn't change
Yeah,
enough.
I mean, maybe the last two levels are good,
Maybe,
but
but-
this game doesn't ever set the expectation that there's more to see.
Yeah. I mean,
it just gets harder.
I should full disclaimer, I could not make it past level 3 in this game because it is hard. It's
Yeah.
very challenging. But it also I
good.
never got past that point because I didn't feel like there was anything that made me want to.
I tried to beat it solely for the purpose of this podcast,
Yeah.
just so that somebody would have beaten it.
Yeah,
I didn't want to beat it. Like I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I literally only want to do it for professionalism's sake.
no, trust me, I didn't.
Like-
I didn't even play 20 minutes.
Mm.
It was just like,
See that I'm a little like, but
That's fair.
that's fair. I mean, if because the
Greg Giles relentlessly pooping.
the game loops the game loops in this are so short. Like the replays, you can jump in and like I would play this in like 5-minute bursts.
Yeah,
Right.
it's built
I'd
for
die
that.
a few times and then I'd just go play something else.
Yeah.
And because there was no need to sit down and play, in my mind, any longer than that because there was nothing more to it.
Yeah, that's
And-
absolutely true.
I mean, I feel like we're beating a dead horse.
Yeah,
at this
we're just
point.
kicking the shit out of it. It's almost like it was meant for a mobile game.
I wouldn't go that far.
Like, at
there's I think that's
I
too.
mean, maybe in terms of design conciseness, I would agree with that. But in terms of actual playability,
Oh, gameplay wise, no.
no.
I'm like the over mechanics of
I see what you're
everything.
saying, yeah.
Well, now that we're done relentlessly pooping on that, I'm not going to let that go. That is
I
awesome.
will again. I will say on another positive note, though, I am very curious to see what the guy or girl, I'm not sure who developed this, what they come up with next. Because this, for as much as this game misses, there's so much potential and
So
promise.
much potential.
in
If
this.
one person made all of this,
It's
like get a team behind them, that'd be pretty cool.
it's whomever worked on this, I would love to see what they do next.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And to explain my earlier comment about being surprised that this is by Devolver, it's just that Devolver's.
Oh yes.
Usually, if I see a Devolver game, I'm like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be awesome!" And this game was not that, so I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, in that regard, like even just their latest like Stranger Things style like horror game, like the fact that it was like, ooh, Devolver made a horror game, I must buy this, and I did immediately. But like, it is surprising because for at least a year, it and Hotline Miami were kind of its flagship titles, and it's kind of. I felt like they had stronger like other titles besides from this that they could put on that pedestal, I guess.
Probably. I'm looking up see what this guy's made.
I tried looking at them
Jerry
earlier,
Bellman.
and the link literally just went back to Heavy Bullets, which is not a good sign.
Looks like just Heavy Bullets on Steam at least.
Yeah.
I mean, this game came out 2-3-ish years ago now.
3 years ago.
So I mean,
Yeah.
games, these things, they take time.
They take time, and
So
hopefully it's just because they're part of a team and they didn't like lead something else and they just moved on.
Or maybe they decided to want to get into botany. Like all power to you, whatever. So
Here's hoping.
well,
On that note,
yeah.
it's time to select the next game. So, to explain the rules real quick for those of you who haven't been here, what we do is we get a random number generator, and I have a Google Doc here with all the games from 2 through, I think it's 36. Correct? And from there, I go to a random number generator, I throw it in, and it gives me a number, and I look at what the hell game is next to that number on the list.
So I've been thinking about this system a bit lately.
Uh-oh.
And one thing I think we should do moving forward, not in this one, random number generators are great and all, and technology. But we need a game die to determine what game we play next.
Oh,
20-sided
absolutely.
die.
Something like that.
Can we get a 36-sided die?
Probably.
Print one.
I could print one,
See
exactly.
what the most sided die you can print is.
I'll bring in some of my D10s
I would
and
be
D20s next time. And,
Absolutely a fan of this.
so yeah, because then you get the nice clickety clack.
Yeah, no, I'd be
podcast.
100% okay with that.
Yeah, all right. We'll next time.
Yahtzee. All right. So I'm going to hit the button.
Push
And-
the button.
Oh, and before we go, there is, if we decide to, a veto. However, if it has to be like the group as like a bigger percentage, so 2 people in this case. But whatever the hell the next number or next game is,
That's the one.
you have to stick with.
Before we roll,
That's how we got Heavy Bullets, actually.
the list of games. Yeah, the list of games. How does that get populated?
Strange mind of Pat Kesterson.
No, anybody can get on it.
Okay, so is there?
It's the Google Doc is on the Game Club
Okay.
Slack for us. Although if Steve's out there want to send us in tweets or emails, by all means,
Happily
please. I try to keep the games on there, at least the ones I put on, under like $15, just because of the concept of you're making somebody buy something.
Hey,
But
you know what? It's important to support developers.
absolutely true.
You want to support the arts? Buy more art.
Please. But But in that case, but other than that, like it is. If you want to put something on there, by all means, please.
All right.
I know I put Kendall. I think Greg, did you put anything on there?
Nope.
Matt has. Yeah, Matt has.
Matt?
I don't know. I think I just had an aneurysm. Hold on. Matt and Steve. Oh wow. I don't know. I don't know either.
You just made up a person.
Are you talking about Clark?
No. All right. I need to go lie down.
All right.
All right.
First game.
I'm gonna roll the number. The number is 16, and what that goes with is that's interesting. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
I'm down. I already played that. I like
Oh.
it.
And Greg's like, yes,
Greg
already
cheated.
did it.
I was very interested in this game actually. So.
I'd be down for it because they did a VR version, so I could play VR.
Ooh, that'd be nice to get that. I know it's on PS4 and Windows. I have been looking to play this for like 2 years now. And it currently costs $19.99, although I think I already have it.
I say do it.
I'm a fan
I
of
think
this.
you should play. I think you should play. Have you looked at that game, Chris?
I've seen it, yeah. There's a lot of things about it I'm very interested by because I know it's supposed to be like story driven in a very good way. Also, there's heavy use of photogrammetry in the design and the art.
That's one of the biggest reasons to play it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's really
it looks
well done.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
It sounds like a more inclusive Dear Esther. Like things actually can happen, and it seems a little bit more focused. Not that Dear Esther sucks, but it
Dear
was
Esther is
cool.
amazing, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. But that's another
Dear Esther
podcast for
sucks.
another day.
I don't like it.
I love Dear Esther. That's a beautiful
I can't
game.
wait.
You should
for,
listen to
Dear Esther is on this.
episode 47 of the Buffalo Games Space podcast.
Is that the latest version?
No.
Latest edition? What's
No.
the latest? What do we got with
I just put one up today.
There should be one right after that. The one that we recorded
And then
last
there's
week.
one more. That's in the box.
48.
In the pocket.
Get close to
In the
50.
hopper?
In the hopper.
So close to 50.
In the closet. No. What?
Relentlessly pooping. It's in the closet. Relentlessly pooping. All right. Well, on that note, thank you,
Vanishing Ethan Carter.
Vanishing of
Speak
Ethan
now, forever
Carter
hold your
is
peace.
the next game. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next meeting. Bye bye.
Bye.
I just channeled Markiplier there.